This is the Daily Technology Pulse podcast. Welcome aboard.
Welcome to another episode of the Daily Technology Pulse. It's Rick from Daily here again with another episode that we hope you'll enjoy. Today we're going to be talking about classroom technology that helps educators reach students that are on different learning levels. But before we go all there, let me tell you a bit more about Daily, because frankly, it's my job. Whether it's K-12 or higher education, Daily has the technology solutions you need. For everyone in Maryland and Virginia, we are your local one-stop shop for hardware, software, managed solutions, advanced technology solutions, audiovisual, and so much more. Remember, we are more than just computers. Find out more at our website, www.daly.com. A quick reminder that your feedback on the Technology Pulse is always welcome. You can reach out to me directly at my email address, ricko@daily.com. Time to get to the nitty-gritty. Wait, do people still say that? I certainly hope so. Anyway, today we're pleased to have with us Mitch Doctor. Mitch is the U.S. Commercial Master Trainer for Microsoft, and Mitch is going to talk to us about solutions that make learning environments more inclusive. Mitch, welcome to the Technology Pulse.
Hi, Rick. So great to be here. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And yourself?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me today. I'm really looking forward to our discussion.
Oh, so am I. So am I. It is an interesting topic because I love to hear how different companies are handling things, particularly because we are in a completely different world these days. So today, obviously, we want to talk about the education sector, and we want to talk about how Microsoft has really been transitioning in there, because I imagine a lot of transitioning needs to be done because the pandemic has just created this whole different environment for education. It's no longer just stuffing students into a classroom. I mean, it's really this more, we were in the classroom and then they were out of the classroom and they were virtual. And now it's become sort of this hybrid or blended environment.
Yeah, I think it's so true. And Rick, let's think of the last two and a half years, right? And I have little kids and in school, out of school, back and forth. And, schools went on looking for devices for whatever was available at the time, I think, right? And they just needed devices so they can do virtual school. And a lot of school districts and whatnot kind of just went after whatever they can get their hands on. But now, as we've seen a big return back to school, of course, for a large majority in your area and across the US, of course, the idea of hybrid learning or a blended learning environment has really taken technology and not just, using it as a place for students to just communicate with other students or their teachers over online while they sit at home, but how they're going to use technology while it sits in front of them on their desk in the classroom while a teacher's instructing is really where we are right now. So this use of how does technology work in the everyday basis of a student's life, an instructor's life, an educator's life, an administrator's life, so on and so forth. So the idea is, our world has changed, and just very much like the business world and how that has changed as well, on where, that's a lot of hybrid, but schooling, we're still very much focused on in-person because that's the best way that educators, of course, can get to instructing, especially in the K through 12 space, I think. But having pieces of technology, and Microsoft believes that a piece of technology within the classroom is incredibly important and instrumental to the future and the future education, the growing of that student on their learning journeys, and how technology can truly play a part by being used as a tool and not so much a hindrance or something that, it's something on the side that, is only going to get in the way or lose focus. But Microsoft is truly about making sure that a student can stay kind of in the situation, right, and understand what's being instructed while using the computer or a piece of technology as a tool toward learning.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend of mine over the weekend, a vice principal at a local school district. And we were talking about back in the day, we just had the good old chalkboard, or they eventually went to a whiteboard, which you thought the whiteboard was this huge jump in technology because there were no longer those dusty chalkboards. You didn't have the screeching. But really, I mean, today, the environment in the classroom really relies on technology quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And don't forget the overhead projectors, right? And the cellophane that they used to write on, right? That's my
True.
time, right? I remember those too. But think of things like the integrated smart boards, or how does a teacher use a laptop integrated with the projection screen, and with how they're using technology with programs like Microsoft PowerPoint, and how the students can then interact with those pieces of technology. And the idea of, I think, having those devices and individual devices for students, either belonging to the student or loaning to that student while they're in the classroom. The idea is that it can truly unlock a lot more potential that's already sitting there by using a new piece of tech.
Correct. And then we talked about the blended environment. Really, it's a mixture of hybrid, in person, everything is sort of on the table these days. But the blended environment really doesn't just stop with the actual environment, doesn't stop at the classroom. When you're talking about classrooms today and you're talking about blended environments, you're really talking about multiple learning styles and multiple learning levels, because quite frankly, there are some people that are on either side of this, but we are very much for inclusivity today. And it's no longer acceptable to separate students out because they're at different learning levels or because they have different language ability levels. So it's really about bringing them all into the classroom at the same time. How has Microsoft worked to really address that challenge?
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I mean, we have to think of what the US population of students looks like, right? We're talking about over 2.5 million students US wide with learning disabilities like dyslexia. We're talking about classrooms where, and again, these are fact numbers, where we're looking at 52% of students in these classrooms are English as second language, right? So they have parents who are, English as second language, or they might not even speak English in their homes at all. So the idea of inclusivity and equity is at the heart of Microsoft's education ideas and portfolio at the moment. The idea that every student, no matter where they come from, where, how much money their families might make, or their skill level or reading level, or anything else for that matter. The idea is every student deserves a fair shake, and every student deserves to be on a level playing field, whether that means they need more help or less help than those sitting next to them. The idea is everybody has the same level of needs and accessibility so that they can be on their learning journeys and be empowered to do so. So Microsoft's doing a lot. The biggest thing we did, of course, in the past year, I hope this isn't news to anybody, but Windows 11 came out. So there is a new Windows operating system. For what it's worth, yes, there's a lot of hoopla around when it did release late 2021. But the idea here is that Windows 11 is truly built for accessibility and inclusivity. And I'm going to go, how's that possible, right? Well, it is 6 times more integrated accessibility features than literally any other operating system in existence. It is also the only operating system that has, within the settings menu, actually has just accessibility. Everything from changing text size to contrast to serving those who might be colorblind, or of course our built-in narration tools are still there. One of my new favorite additions to Windows 11 is built into the operating system live captioning. You don't have to turn it on and off. If you want live captioning, it could be on for literally everything. You don't have to kind of worry about, does this program have live captioning, or this video that I posted or I'm grabbing from an outside source, will it have? You don't have to worry about that. It is built into the operating system. It's pretty incredible. And now we also have accelerated voice detection. So the idea is that if somebody maybe doesn't have the use of their extremities, or maybe just like overall think older teachers who might have things like arthritis. My mom herself just has a bit of arthritis and carpal tunnel, and typing, she's not nearly as quick as she was one day on a typewriter. And again, my mom was a teacher of almost 35 years in public school and special education. So the idea that she can sit at her computer and just talk to it to make her PowerPoint slides or write in Word or a letter and things like that. Think of these different tools as you can, because the idea is no matter how an educator or a student needs to use a computer, there's a feature built in. So I do want to call out one other feature, Rick, and I think it's pretty incredible. So we know that students, right, over 2.5 million of them have some type of learning disability. So what if there was a tool, say in Microsoft Word or within Microsoft Teams for education, or I don't know, even in a web browser like Microsoft Edge, that you can make it easier to read for those students or that individual for that matter? So imagine, if you will, having a tool like Immersive Reader, which is built into all of those programs that can allow you to open a website or a PDF or a Word document or anything else for that matter. It will separate out words into syllables. It'll even focus down to 1 or 2 lines. And then having the built-in narrator that will actually follow along. You can separate out pieces of grammar or even words, everything from adjectives to nouns and vowels, and truly teach reading and how to read by syllables and whatnot. And all of that can be manipulated by the user so it works for them, and it can work for them every single time by a quick on and off switch. So we're really looking at servicing anyone who touches a Windows 11 PC, and especially in education, to empower those educators and those students on their continued learning journeys.
Now, it sounds to me like a lot of this could be tailored around or could be built around one of the terms that's really going around education these days is social emotional learning, or SEL. SEL really has to do with students' motivation, correct?
Part of it, I think, is motivation. I think the other part of it is just kind of like how the kid's feeling. There's so much going on in the world, and so much more than when I was in school, right? And everything from social media to what they're watching on TV and how they're talking to their friends. And I think there's just so much going on. And, other than parents, an educator, a teacher is whom sees these children every single day for 9 to 10 months out of the year. So I think the idea here is, how can we keep students socially and mentally, I think, healthy as we might see them every year as a teacher or educator?
Very true. Very true. And so a lot of that really does have to go back to the engagement, because I can remember back in the days, both when I was sitting in front of the teacher and also standing in front of a classroom back to my teaching days, when I would sit there and say, the disengaged student, the one who feels left out, you're really dragging them kicking and screaming through any type of lesson. So the more engaged you can keep them, the better the educational journey is going to be for those particular students, because nobody ever wants to be left behind.
No, I agree. I totally agree, right? And I think we've all even been that student before, even just a little bit. And I think we can all relate to whom that student is. And using a piece of technology, right, like a PC, along with things like Teams for Education, I think can really kind of bridge that gap, because every student can have that kind of one-on-one personalized attention and personalized learning experiences with an educator, even through that piece of technology. So for instance, if we think of Microsoft Teams and specifically about social emotional learning, right? So we have tools within Teams that are built in for educators to do simple check-ins like, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you feeling about the exam coming up this week? And students can actually check off or write in, hey, I'm anxious, or I'm excited, or I'm sad. We can see how students are, but I think the most important thing is the data that comes of that for that individual teacher or educator. They can see patterns. They can see patterns of the class. They can see patterns of individuals. So we are hoping, and the hope is that we can see educators and students having better overall engagement and relationships with each other. So say, for instance, there is an exam at the end of the week, right? And you have that 3/4 of the class are feeling really anxious about the exam. Maybe the educator might decide that, hey, we need to talk about this openly in class and find out why people are not ready and people are not feeling good about this. Think of that, like, as you are a teacher, like, how many students, if you say, is anybody anxious about the exam? Are they going to raise their hand at you in the middle of a classroom of 35 kids?
No.
But imagine if they can just click in front of them on their screen that nobody else is going to see it but a teacher, that they're anxious. And then a teacher can post completely anonymously, look, 75% said this, 5% said this, 5% said this. Now, even though you might be alone in your seat, you don't feel alone because you know other students are feeling the same way.
That type of polling, is that done directly through Teams, or is that an integration?
So the social emotional learning type stuff, and we actually refer to it as, it has like little cartoons with it called Feeling Monsters, is actually part of the Teams for Education experience. It is fully built in as a kind of part of that application experience within Teams, the platform itself. But a program like Forms as part of Microsoft 365 is pretty incredible as well. I know the educators use it for like spot check quizzes and whatnot, and those quizzes can be given through Teams for Education. education. So all of that kind of flows all through the same place. I think it's really important to understand that Microsoft Teams for EDU is very different than those that may be using it for business or even personal use. It truly is its own brand, and it's also a platform. And I think that's really important to get through, that Teams is not just for chatting back and forth and typing. Teams is a platform that is full of applications and information to allow us to share and collaborate, or grade exams, or issue assignments, and so on and so forth. It truly is a single one-stop shop for technical education needs and around collaboration specifically.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I know that a lot of people will use Microsoft Teams, and knowing that Microsoft Teams for Education is a completely different animal, I think that's something that a lot of people may not realize. Knowing that it has all of this other functionality is really beneficial.
I've been at Microsoft a while, so I was a guinea pig for Teams for a very long time ago. So Teams is always exciting, but I myself am new to really learning about Teams for Education, even just the last 6 to 8 months. But I think it's really incredible, the amount of empowerment that we can give students and educators within a platform like Microsoft Teams, where we know everything is secure. Their privacy is secure, their security policies and everything in there as well, but also the information all exists in one place. There's no going and grabbing from here and then, oh, does this app have this and this app has this and this? But no, because it's part of Microsoft 365 already. So Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all of those things all work in conjunction inside of Microsoft Teams as well. And then Microsoft Teams can do the same thing, like record projects and videos and upload them directly into an assignment right to an educator or right toward a collaboration group of maybe like a student project, for instance. And that's the idea, is that it is a single platform that education can truly exist and thrive in within the digital world, in conjunction with students sitting next to each other in a classroom.
Now, I'm glad you brought up security, because that was something that I really wanted to talk about. Talking to tech people, they will tell you the biggest benefit of all of this technology that we have available to us is the users. And the biggest detriment to all of this technology is the users.
It's so true. It's
a
true.
Double-edged sword. So
crazy.
You talk about the fact, and I fight these battles constantly with my children, where I'm going to download this because somebody on a TikTok video or somebody on a YouTube video said, go to this link and download this. And you have no idea what on earth you're downloading. So, I have to think, between ransomware and all of the different data challenges, how does Microsoft up its game to really focus on the safety and security of not just the students, but you also have teachers and you have all of the different staff members? How does Microsoft address those security concerns?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's super important. Literally, I am not part of a single conversation in a day where security is not part of that conversation, because it has to be, right? That's where the world we live in, with endpoints, aka devices, existing everywhere, from our pockets to our desks and everywhere else in between. How do you keep all the information that is within those devices secure? So there's a couple different ways, but let's focus down on education for a second, because unfortunately, education is a prime target for cyber threats and cybercrime, because they're quote unquote, dare I say, a soft target, right? Because small IT teams, how do you manage security? So what are we at Microsoft and Windows doing? Well, with Windows 11 and Windows 11 education devices, every piece of security available is on by default on a new machine, period, end of story. Everything is on. So everything from firewalls to firmware protection and those type of things are all on by default. And this isn't just a tenant of Windows 11 EDU. This is a tenant of Windows 11, period. And I want to kind of go back to one thing, but it is also related to the hardware itself, the actual computers that are being built from our wonderful manufacturing. Those are the folks at Dell, Lenovo, HP, OEM partners that are building incredible devices housing Windows 11 or Windows 11 for education. And the biggest thing that all of these now have is something called a trusted platform module. I don't want to go into the weeds or anything, but this was really important for Windows 11. This little chip that sits next to a processor, right? The brain of the machine. And this chip is essentially a lock and key. It is a safety deposit box sitting next to the brain of a computer. And what does it do? Well, it stores all of your password information, all of your boot up stuff, all the firmware, right? All the necessary information that makes a computer, and essentially hides it away. So God forbid a cyber threat and things do get onto a machine, that safety deposit box is essentially invisible to anything but when that computer boots up. And this goes to what we refer to as a hardware root of trust. The hardware, the physical device itself, the processor, and those things all together allow us to have a device with Windows running on it that is that much more secure from the get-go. But our security also extends far beyond that. Obviously, on the operating system itself, Windows Defender is built into all of our Windows 11 devices, as well as things like browsing. And I know you mentioned like, oh, this friend on TikTok told me to go download this, and they just sent me a random link. Great. How many people have clicked on a bad link in their email before? Because I know Rick and I are raising our hands because it's the truth. We've all done it. It's happened to all of us. But with Microsoft Edge built in and using Microsoft Edge, the web browser itself, we have screen filter. And what's really cool with that is if you do click on a bad malicious link that Microsoft is already aware of, your whole screen will go red on the web browser and go, don't go here. Just straight up like, don't go to this website. You're in danger. Just straight up. So this smart screen filter is incredible. Like, would you go to that website if you got a bright red and go, don't go here? Like, would that happen to you?
No. And we need that. We're the Stranger Things society these days. We really need this to hit us over the head, because it used to be just the little warning inside Microsoft Outlook. This link may not be safe. Are you sure you want to go there? And you're adorable. I'm going to continue driving down this dead end road and see where it takes me. Yeah. But now, I mean, we really do. We need that big, bold, don't go here.
And then think of a student that says, don't go here, right? And they see bright red. What's the first thing that student's going to do? Oh my God, I broke something, and they're going to close it. Well, that's what we want them to do. We want them to close it because that kind of negates that malicious act from trying to get in. And then there is one other big security, well, I guess two, it's twofold security. And that's, we protect devices, and that's great. But above that, we protect individuals. And you're going to go, how do you protect an individual? Hey, Rick, do you have an email address? Your name at yourbusiness.com, right?
Correct.
And yep. And a lot of students have their name at theirschool.edu, don't they?
They do.
That's them. That's their individuality within that kind of environment at school. When you have Microsoft 365, for instance, we just referred to that as an individual tenant, right? That tenant is their way of accessing the school's data and information. Now, what's really incredible with Microsoft 365 on the back end of this is that each individual student, educator, administrator, IT professional, so on and so forth, each has their own individualized ID, and each of those IDs can be given certain security restrictions or access to certain things. Because does a teacher and administrator need the same type of level of access to the same type of files?
No.
Probably not, right? No. And then does a student need access to IT stuff? No, of course not. Right? Like, definitely not. We definitely don't want them touching anything. But the idea is they can all exist within that same environment, and IT administrators and managers can make sure of that. So not even every single device, but every single individual, because guess what? Individuals access, whether it's company data or school data, usually on more than just one device. Because I don't know about you, but I definitely have my work email on like 2 devices plus my 2 cell phones. And well, how do you protect it everywhere? It's because we're protecting the individual, not so much the device itself. So it's really twofold. Yes, the devices that have Windows are extremely safe and secure, but so are the individuals just accessing your data. And we also know who those individuals are as well.
Yeah, guilty is charged on the email on multiple devices between PC and Mac and iPhone and iPad. I'm probably one of those people that you look at and say, big security risk. Having that flexibility, I can go from PC to Mac and I can still use Outlook.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then for someone like you and for education IT, there's one other really quick thing they could just turn on and off. Because you know what the number one security flaw is within any environment?
No clue.
It's you and me. It's people. Because people get phished. We know that, right? It's a fact of the matter. But if your IT administrator or managers can turn on multi-factor authentication in one click for every single ID within the environment, they just solved the password stealing issue, didn't they?
They did, which is good, because I have to say there are times, particularly on password change day, where I then have to change the password on all my different devices. And then I get the MFA, we're going to text you. And I'm like, good grief, this is about the 9th text message that I've had to get today. But when you stop and think about the alternative, somebody's broken in, stolen all of my data, and completely corrupted my corporate network, which is probably going to be a, if not career limiting move, a career killing move. That is not something I want to happen. I'd rather have to get 9 text messages and type in the code.
For sure. But I think the idea at the end of the day is Microsoft truly believes in a passwordless future. And I honestly, right now, today, I couldn't even tell you what my password is. I honestly have no idea, because I just get a notification or a text on my phone and I click it really quick and it logs me in. So if I was sitting in the office with you and I wanted to check my corporate email, I could sign in through office.com and sign in without ever typing in a password because I have my phone on me. Like, that's the power we're talking about.
That is extremely powerful. Now, I have to say, we've been talking about IT folks, and we definitely want to give them a lot of love because they really are the heart and soul behind all of this. You talked before about the fact that Windows 11 came out. What do IT folks who want to take their devices from Windows 10 to Windows 11, what do they have to look forward to? Be honest.
I think it's really important, right? Especially when I think education, like thousands of students and educators and whatnot in a district, an IT team of 3, 4, 5 if they're lucky. Like, how do you manage all those devices across the district? What I do want to say is, one, Windows 11 is obviously an upgrade to Windows 10, but on your end, on the IT side, if you're already managing a Windows 10 environment, you literally need to change next to nothing. Windows 11 and Windows 10 can actually be maintained and managed consistently together within the same environment. And this is because Windows 11 is truly based on the same core of Windows 10. So there's a huge piece of backend and IT consistency, whether that's how you deploy or if that's how you manage, or you're using, you're managing the Windows updates or the applications that can be run. All of that can be done the same way it's being done today on Windows 10 from a single dashboard, can all be done on a Windows 11 machine as well. And even together, meaning a hybrid environment. If you had 10 and you weren't able to go to all 11 devices all at once, that's fine, because you can manage 10 and 11 simultaneously together from a single dashboard.
I'm sure a lot of IT folks are going to love to hear that, because we certainly don't want to give them any more work. Like you said, they're overworked as it is.
They are. And then I'll do you one better. I know a lot of schools do have their applications that kind of belong to them, or they have this app and that app. Like, I don't want to go because my programs aren't going to work. Well, that's okay. 99.2% of apps on 10 work on 11, which is pretty incredible. And then for schools that do have larger Microsoft 365 accounts and whatnot, if their apps don't work, they're actually going to be able to work with support teams at Microsoft to make sure that their apps do work on Windows 11.
Mitch, this has been fantastic. Any final thoughts before we wrap today's episode up?
Yeah, one, thank you, Rick, for having me, and thank you to the team at Daily for having us at Microsoft and allowing us to really talk about education. I want you all to walk away with one thing. It's truly that Microsoft's look into education now is truly about equity and inclusivity. It's how to give every single student and every single educator on that kind of same level playing field. So there are no boundaries and there is nothing to get in the way. So we can empower every single learner to achieve more.
We appreciate Microsoft as a valued partner with Daily. I mean, I know we have some really big school systems in the area, and I'm going to call one out, Prince William County. They're all in on student Windows devices. Having the partnership that we have with Microsoft, immensely beneficial, not just to Daily, but to our customers. Mitch, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Rick. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Mitch, thanks again for being on the Technology Pulse. We really appreciate all that great information you shared with us today. All right, time for the wrap up. If you're interested in finding out more about what Daily and Microsoft can do for you, just visit our website, www.daily.com, or call us. You can reach us at 800-955-DAILY, D-A-L-Y. That's 3259. You can also find us on Twitter and LinkedIn under our official name, Daily Computers. Legal stuff time, but I promise I won't speed up the audio like they do in those shady commercials. The Technology Pulse podcast is produced and presented by Daily Computers, Inc. Information presented in the Technology Pulse cannot be copied or rebroadcast without Daily's expressed written consent. Finally, if you have questions, comments, or concerns about the Technology Pulse, get a hold of me on email, ricko@daily.com. Until next time, this is still Rick from Daily saying so long.